Hello and welcome back to another episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, and today I'm joined by RCN Capital's very own Mike Carrozzella. And for those out there that think this might be an opportunity for RCN to just shamelessly plug one of their employees, Mike actually has some pretty good experience investing in the real estate industry himself, and I think the insight he's going to share today is going to help a lot of people out there. Mike, if you would, just talk about your journey so far in the industry and what brings you to our table today.
Yeah, first off, Nate, thanks for the introduction. I appreciate being here. Looking forward to the opportunity to speak to everybody and give some valuable information. What brought me to the industry was I actually grew up in a family-run real estate business. From a young age, I was at these properties, boots on the ground, in these houses that were flips, helping paint, helping do the demolition. That was actually probably my favorite part growing up. You know, you get to get in there as a kid and break some cabinets and stuff like that. So that was always cool. And just as I grew older, just spending time with my dad and other members of the business to really learn what it takes to operate successfully and make it in the real estate industry.
Yeah, that's so cool. We've had a few guests on here where it's kind of that family tradition, right, where they're exposed to it at an early age. Do you remember a point where it stopped being something that was like fun for you and, you know, taking the sledgehammer to that wall over there, and it kind of turned into the idea of, oh, this is actually something that's a very viable profession and something that I want to take a little more seriously? Do you remember having that moment?
Yeah, I think it was when I was getting into about high school age where things started to click for me. It started to make sense about the money behind what was actually going on in what you see in person. It's different to walk into a house and just see what it looks like. You know, it's an ugly old home, it needs work, and then what it looks like in the end, it's beautiful. What's behind that? When you peel back those layers, what do the numbers look like? What does the actual putting together of that deal look like? Who's involved? And it was those sort of conversations that I started to have with my dad and in the business and some of the connections that he had. So I was meeting new people that were involved, and that really started to open up my eyes to what's actually out there and not just, you know, what I'm seeing.
That's so cool, yeah. And I think having a parent in the industry is such a luxury. Was there anybody else that was maybe a mentor or that you seeked advice from early on in your career that still helps you to this day?
You know, I would say I did lean heavily on my father for years going through high school. And then as I started on with RCN, I found that there were so many investors across the country that were doing something either different, in a similar vein of what I had grown up doing, or just, were really bringing a new perspective to the business for me. One of those people, actually, I was fortunate enough to meet at RCN, Tim Harridge, former host here.
Shout out Tim.
Yeah,
he'll love that.
He gave me a couple of great pieces of advice. I spent some time early on, after work hours, just hopping on a Zoom with him and asking him questions. And he was really good about giving me that insight and giving me some confidence to take my business to the next level. We actually spent some time together on the road, various conferences. So definitely a unique learning experience. Yep. And I was able to get a different idea of what real estate looks like from somebody from a totally different part of the country.
No, and I think that's a great answer and a great story for the listeners to hear, right? Obviously, you know, a relationship with a parent is something that you hold valuable and you're always going to go to them for advice. But at a certain point, you need to kind of see what else is out there and, you know, seek other professional opinions as well. So I think a blend of both of those puts you in a really great position to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So you mentioned your early days at RCN Capital, speaking with Tim Harridge. You find yourself in a really interesting position where you're an investor and you work for a private lender at RCN. So I'm wondering what went into the decision to join RCN Capital. A lot of investors can really just focus on their portfolio and have a narrow focus. So what made you want to broaden your horizon, so to speak, as you're already experiencing some success as a young investor? What was that push to join RCN Capital as well?
You know, part of that push was to gain more experience in the financial background of real estate. I think that you can learn so much by being involved, boots on the ground, in person. But to a certain extent, there's almost a cap of what you could actually understand until you fully grasp the finance aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Finance is really something that does drive the industry because you're able to leverage your money, you're able to leverage other people's money, and that's just something that can really help your business grow. So when I saw a company like RCN who was I don't want to say newer because they had been around for years and I had heard of them. They were fairly local, but a company that was just beginning to take off. I saw what kind of a vision they had, and I was really excited to hopefully get my foot in the door there and see where things have gone. In the last almost 5 years now, I've seen some drastic growth in the company. I think that there's huge things in the future for RCN, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. So I think it's helped give me, again, I refer back to perspective, and it's given me another angle at what real estate is and what's involved.
Very cool. We joked about this before the episode. Are you a loan officer that invests in real estate or an investor that's a loan officer? And it's the concept is funny, but obviously it's very beneficial for you. You talked about understanding the numbers and the finance aspect. I'm wondering, what other benefits do you think that provides, for our investor listeners out there that may be considering doing something similar to the career path that you've already carved out for yourself? Is it kind of the information at hand, being able to spot trends maybe quicker, being in that work environment? Is it the networking and the meeting of the people, those kind of opportunities? What benefits do you think really help you be playing both sides of the fence?
So I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of networking opportunities. I've been fortunate to meet people from California all the way up to Connecticut and all in between. And it's really given me the ability to make further connections in the business. I've learned valuable lessons from them. I do like to think of myself these days as a loan officer who also invests. It's funny. In the beginning, I kind of thought of myself as an investor getting into the loan industry. Mm-hmm. These days, it's a little bit different. I do like to think of lending first because I think ultimately that's where a lot of deals start, is seeing what that looks like on paper, seeing how all the numbers map out. And from there, you can really determine if a deal is actually going to be a success or not.
One of the things I think you touched on in that answer that can be really helpful for the investor listeners out there is the markets that you've talked about, right? So you have the opportunity to travel, obviously being located in Connecticut yourself and investing in Connecticut, being able to understand and master a market. How important do you think that is for investors to really hone in on before they get carried away with the nicest properties in beautiful cities or the markets that are appearing to be trending? Kind of finding success in your backyard. How important do you think that is?
Yeah, I think finding success in your backyard is really where a lot of it starts. And I still myself have yet to grow out of that per se. I'm very interested to get into other parts of the country, but I found that through mastering my own location, I'm able to know, pretty quickly if a deal is something that's going to work. And then obviously from there, getting further information, further detail. But there is something very valuable about being able to drive to a property, go walk it, bring people that are in your, on your team, whether it's contractors, property managers, anyone in between, where you can get a full idea of what that property is. Pictures online of these properties are not always as they seem. It's the job of the agent to make it enticing and to make you interested in the property and go there. Oftentimes you do go, and it's a lot different than it might look online. Financial reports are huge, so getting those up front can certainly help if you are branching into new markets. But knowing your backyard, it's really helpful because it does put you in a better position. If anything were to go sideways, I feel that it's easier for you to exit or reposition yourself.
That's a great lesson right there, wrapped up into that answer. Thank you so much. I think too, one of the things you hit on is when you pull up to a property or lay your eyes on that deal initially, you can tell whether or not that deal is going to work, and saving yourself that time in a way is also making you more money. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing for investors to hear and kind of take note of, in terms of expansion versus the local market that's available to you right down the street. One of the other questions I wanted to ask, we talk a lot about education on this podcast, learning, having the confidence before you make these financial decisions that could determine how good of a year you have. Yeah. You probably learned a lot on the job, being that you grew up with it with your father. Do you think that on-the-job learning is the best way to do it, kind of the trial and error, maybe the learning by failing? We've had so many guests on here talk about if you're afraid to make mistakes, then you're not going to achieve the success that you want to. So do you prescribe to that learning by doing? Obviously, with the YouTube videos that are out there, people think that learning remotely or online is the best case. Where are you on that argument of the best way to learn?
I think I'm a mix of both. I think it's invaluable to be able to go and, get your hands dirty, right? Get into a deal, get into the numbers, sit down, run through things, talk to people, and actually be involved in some capacity. Sitting there and watching YouTube videos, reading books, certainly that's great stuff that will help you in certain ways. But until you actually have some hands-on experience of being involved and having, money on the table per se to win or to lose, it really puts you in a position of, I've got to do everything I can to make this work versus sitting back, reading, watching YouTubes. Again, highly recommend that. But at the same time, I think there's also another level to that is getting involved.
Yeah. It's priceless, to be quite honest. That exactly. Experience, you can't trade it. And I think what people get caught up with is, well, what if that first experience is bad? Or what if it doesn't go according to plan? I mean, there's countless stories out there of people that their first deal absolutely blew up in their face, and look at where they are now, right? So getting off the couch, closing the laptop and actually having the confidence to get out there and try to close that first deal is an extremely important step that investors take.
Yep, absolutely. And I think one of the ways you can mitigate some risk when you're first getting started is to find that expert in your area, find somebody that you look up to, and talk to them about how you can bring them value, right? If you are learning how to underwrite these deals and what makes a good deal by, through those YouTube videos and through reading those books and seeing what the numbers might look like on something and how to break down a deal, from that point, you can then take that deal to an investor, to somebody that maybe is a mentor, and say, hey, I've done all the background. I've done all the legwork on this deal. I think it's a great deal. Here's why. And then they can get involved with you. Maybe you guys partner, you go 50-50, something like that, where you've brought the deal, you've brought all the analysis, and they say, looks like a great deal. I'll put my money up. Let's do it together. They've got a proven track record. I think that's a great way for new investors, especially if you have somebody close to you that you trust and that you can work with. So,
dropping the knowledge. I appreciate it, Mike. We're off to a great start today with Mike Carrozzella from RCN Capital. We're going to take a quick break. Our sponsors are going to take over for a little bit, and we'll be right back with the Money Making Minute with Mike Carrozzella. Thank you. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insights and knowledge from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information right at your fingertips. Visit REIinc.com to elevate your real estate investment game today. Welcome back to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. Today, I'm joined by Mike Carrozzella. And Mike, we're going to get right into it with the Money Making Minute segment. This is going to be an investment strategy, an app, a skill, maybe even a habit or part of your routine. What can investors take away from this episode, start implementing tomorrow, and it'll ensure that they see success in 2024 and beyond? Take it away.
So I would say the first thing, and we've certainly hit on it a few times already today, is find an expert. Regardless of what you want to do, what part of real estate you want to be involved in, whether it's Airbnb or multifamily or fix and flip or wholesale, find somebody in your network, whether that's part of a local REIA page or a lot of times Facebook has great pages for investors to get involved in. Find somebody who's an expert and see how you can talk to them and learn from them. A lot of times, again, as we already talked about, in the industry, it's getting your hands dirty and getting involved in that deal will really, take you further than it will by just sitting on the sidelines. So I also think there's a lot of great websites and great tools for investors. I personally use REI Dealmaster. I think it's really helped my business. I'm able to, look for sellers on off-market properties. I'm able to advertise. I'm able to do all sorts of things through one platform. It's very helpful, and it's certainly helped my business in recent days. So as far as the tech side of things, I definitely say that helps. And again, local REIAs, go meet people and just get involved in the business. Get your name out there and be known.
You made some great points there, Mike. I think websites such as REI Dealmaster can really help investors that feel like they're hitting that wall. so many questions we get at RCN Capital revolve around how can I generate more leads? How can I find more properties, right? So being able to offer those solutions for them is extremely valuable. So I do thank you for sharing that. And what importance do you think those websites have within the industry, right? Because I think for investors out there, hearing that they exist can just be such an eye-opening solution for them.
Yeah, it's access to additional knowledge that not everybody out there has. In 2024, everybody has access to the internet. Everybody can look on Zillow and see properties that are listed. But what you can do on websites like REI Dealmaster is go further. Look at those properties that are not listed on the market. Look for them, the ones that might be free and clear. The ones might have, absentee owners, tired landlords, and you can specifically market to those properties to try to find a new deal. As we all know, inventory is still very low. It's super competitive. One step that implementing certain websites and whatnot, like REI Dealmaster, it allows you to get a little bit of a leg up on some of the competition by having access to more information.
Very cool. Very cool strategy for finding other ways to succeed. I love that. As we talk about the journey of a newer investor or somebody that's just starting out, maybe a couple months, a year into the industry, is there a specific loan type, property type? What should those newer investors really be focusing their attention on? Right? There's so many deals out there that people can think are good, but they get into the deal and then it becomes overwhelming, right? So I think just because the numbers are telling you one thing, people might get excited and get ahead of themselves. So what really should they be looking for as they start this journey?
I would say, and even speaking from the lender side of things here, I would say for new investors, it is kind of beneficial to focus more on your smaller properties, your singles, maybe your duplexes that are local to you. Again, as we talked about, being able to go and see that property in person, being able to meet contractors out there to make sure that work is done the right way at the right time frame is very important. Certainly, there's so many different avenues in real estate that you can go, but it's about getting deals under your belt, getting that practice of what it takes to get a deal done, what it takes to get a property sold in the end. And I think the easiest way to go about that is, taking down those smaller deals, your fix and flips, even rentals. If that's your goal and you want to get involved in rentals, you can certainly start by doing that. I would maybe even suggest doing like the BRRRR strategy where you're buying something, adding value to it, refinancing to pull your cash back out, and then using that cash that's been made tax-free to then go ahead and buy the next one and just keep repeating that process over and over.
Yeah, that BRRRR strategy is a good one. That's definitely a buzzword, and it's fun explaining that to investors and kind of seeing that light bulb above their head and realizing the opportunity that's out there. So going a layer deeper on those loan types and property types, when you talk about the fix and flip projects, I think that's what a lot of newer investors gravitate towards. It's been popularized on TV channels, right? There's so much glamour behind the fix and flip process now. What are some tips that investors can take rather than redoing the entire house? Maybe that's not quite in their budget yet. Mm-hmm. What are some of those quick, efficient fixes that they can use and utilize to kind of turn a profit at a much quicker pace?
Sure. It's looking for those properties that are not going to require any structural work. You want to make sure the foundation is in solid shape. If you're not moving walls or doing anything like opening up doorways, you're not going to have to get involved with adding headers or beams or changing anything like that. So that's certainly a way that you can save money. But one of the things we do see a lot is kitchens and bathrooms sell, right? You see a new kitchen that's got granite countertops, maybe new hardwood flooring, new stainless steel appliances. That's going to get a lot more interest than, maybe a fresh coat of paint in the bedrooms. That certainly goes a long way, especially when people walk into houses. But at the end of the day, kitchens and bathrooms sell. So if you're able to do those items, and they can be costly, but there's certainly cost-effective ways to do them, those are certainly two of the ones that pay the most dividends up front.
And another question that comes to mind based off that answer would be, how important do you think it is to secure a general contractor? Is there somebody that you utilize on every deal? Do you have maybe a group in your contact book of, one of these three companies will be able to help me? Mm-hmm. I guess really what I'm asking is the importance of investors forging that relationship with a general contractor. Because again, when we're talking about time, saving money, taking out the risk of it all,
Yeah.
having a general contractor with the know-how to complete these jobs and complete them the right way is extremely important. So how vital do you think that relationship is?
It's huge. And I've mentioned Facebook pages. I'm a member in the Connecticut Investors page, and I've found some great contractors over the years. I think it's a great place to meet new people. You really do want to build up that book. It's with anything in sales where you're building up a book of business. It's the same way when you're getting involved with these properties. You're building up a book of contacts that you can reach out to if you find a deal. So if you have somebody who does roofs and you buy a new deal and you need a whole new roof, you've got somebody you can call. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 people you can call. Now you have 3 different quotes, and you know they all do quality work. Now you can really effectively manage your budget by getting the best price on each deal. General contractors are also great. They take a lot of the guesswork out of, if you're trying to subcontract out all the work yourself, general contractors are a great way to take away that time component. You're not going to have to be there managing contractor doing this, contractor doing this. They're there to handle that. It can be a little bit more pricey at times, but it's also a great way if you're working on multiple investments at the same time.
Awesome stuff, Mike. We're going to take one more time out. We'll be right back with the Deal Breaker, Deal Maker segment. This has been a great episode. Stay tuned. Whether you are pursuing long-term or short-term ventures, RCN Capital has a wide range of loan programs that will help you reach your financial goals. We have loan programs for fix and flips, long-term rentals, new construction, and even multifamily properties. And don't forget to ask about our Platinum program for very experienced investors. To learn more about our loan programs, click the link in the bio or send an email to info@rcncapital.com today. Thank you for joining us today on this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm joined with RCN Capital Senior Loan Officer Mike Carrozzella. Mike, you've been bringing some heat today. The answers have been great. New investors in the space will learn a lot from this episode if they stay tuned in. Thank you so much. The next segment we have is going to be Deal Breaker, Deal Maker, and the idea is simple here. What causes deals to break down? As a loan officer, I'm sure you've seen this maybe too many times than you'd like, right? Deals just break down. There's some common themes there. What can people do to avoid those deals breaking down? And then conversely, when it comes to successful transactions, I'm sure they all have some common themes. So what do those successful deals have in common? Take it away.
So it's actually, I would say, one thing for both of them, and it all comes down to communication. Good communication can really make a deal. I've certainly seen it both on the lending side of things and also the investing, where you're working with somebody, maybe it's another agent who's brought the deal on behalf of their buyer and they're not great at communicating, and you've got other deals on the table. It really can make a difference for the people that are communicating effectively, because one of the biggest things is the unknown is scary to everybody. The less you're hearing from people, the more often our minds tend to turn to worst possible scenario. So communication is certainly something I've seen where deals break down. And it also can really make a deal. When you have people who communicate effectively, they communicate on a daily basis and provide updates, deals do tend to move smoother. There tends to be less headaches. There tends to be less confusion as to what's going on, when's this deal going to close, who's involved, who's getting paid. It all can be much more seamless if everybody's communicating. So that's my big one there. And I know it's a little bit cheating. We're on both sides of the angle there, but it's the one I would say.
Definitely learned a thing or two as I've started this journey as a podcast host, and communication is king. It's very key. If you want a successful transaction, like you mentioned, that open line of communication can never close. One of the places that communication takes place and can really help businesses prosper, investors prosper, is trade shows and networking opportunities. I know you've sprinkled a few into your answers, but if you could just give us a review or an overview of what you think is the best way for an investor to achieve those networking opportunities and make the most of them, right? Sometimes the trade shows, the price tag, the travel, it makes investors a little bit weary, but they are extremely valuable at the same time. So where do you fall on, what networking opportunities investors should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, so I think there's certainly various levels of how involved you want to be. And again, price tag is certainly a thing for especially new investors. You want to decide, how much you're going to invest in your business up front, and maybe you don't even have a ton of capital to invest in the business. So a great place to start is local RIAs. Oftentimes the price tag to get into some of those meetings is fairly low, sometimes nothing at all. It's a great place to make connections that are local to you. Potentially partners, potentially contractors. There's always title companies, attorneys. So there's so many different people that you can use to build out your team. And then you can even take it a step further and get out on the road. There's tons of awesome trade shows in our industry, both on the lending and the investing side of things. There's certainly, mastermind groups and things of that nature that you can get involved in. So the sky is really the limit with that. It just comes back to, where you feel comfortable and then where you can get into up front and then go from there. So I think there's varying levels, and I think that it behooves every investor to actually, check out a few of those different options at some point.
I think the next place I want to take the conversation is something that I like to ask all of my guests. The investment space can wear you down. It's a very grueling industry. Was there ever any times that you've had doubts in your career, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to doubts, it's something that certainly creeps into people's minds, in any industry, really. Am I on the right path for myself? Am I doing what I really love? Those are certainly things that in the past I've thought about. And then even being at trade shows, I've sat in rooms with people who are doing a lot more than I am, who are doing, all different types of real estate that I'd love to be involved in. And that's where some doubts can creep in of, am I where I need to be right now? Am I ever going to get to that point? And I don't want to look at it as a doubt per se. It's more of something that you can pull motivation from, right? Rather than sitting in there and say, I'm so much further behind this person. This person's, really moving the needle and their business is expanding. It's more so a point of motivation. How can I be more like this person? Is there a way that I can connect with this person? That's what I would say. Doubts is maybe the wrong idea of it to look at. And then the other thing in our industry is certainly interest rates. We deal with things that are out of our control every day, and that can certainly create doubt when you have an environment like we've had the last year and a half, 2 years now, where we went from low threes and now we're up in the sevens. It certainly can create a lot of doubt in investors. And does my deal still work? Is this something that I want to stay involved in? It's out of your control, and that can be scary at times.
That's very well said. I think doubt and motivation can sometimes be the same exact thing. It just matters on what your perspective is about the challenge that's in front of you, right?
I like that.
You can be motivated to conquer it, or you can doubt it and shy away from it. So that's a very unique perspective. I like that. Thank you for sharing. I also want to talk about any passion projects that you have that are maybe outside of investing. Again, we talk about the grueling nature of it, very isolated at times the investment space can be. So is there anything outside of the industry that you take solace in that maybe helps you recharge or re-energize, and you can bring that energy back into the real estate investment space?
Yeah, so I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here, and family is certainly something that it helps you really escape from the grueling grind that real estate and investing can be at times. It's certainly been a passion project to some degree of, my wife and I have been building up our house for the last few years and taking on projects there, and we're not seeing a financial return in the end, but it's more of an emotional return and a return on our family of what we, value. We've added to our family via pets and stuff like that. Nice. So it always helps with, being able to reset yourself and find that point of calmness and peace at the end of the day to then get back the next morning and be at your best self. So I really find that that's my passion project per se. And I'd also say, and again, investing with that family side of things, my wife is getting involved in her own business. And so for me, I'm not financially involved in this business. It's not something involved in real estate. She's doing interior design, and it's something that nice. I really can help her out with, and it helps me to step away from real estate and just be involved with being there for my wife, helping her, making sure that I can be as supportive as possible.
Sometimes a simple answer is the best answer, right? And having that family at home can be the game changer. It's something that people take for granted sometimes, but it can really have all the positive impact in the world. Another solid answer there. So I think the last thing I want to leave our listeners with is, for you've been in the industry for a while now. Maybe I don't know. Maybe some of your earliest memories are going back to the sites with your parents or your dad. What's the best piece of advice that you've gotten during your time in the real estate industry?
Oh man, I've gotten so much advice over the years, and so much of it has been positive on my experience. I would say one of the things that I hold with me to this day is find the expert. And it doesn't even just pertain to real estate. It's anything. If you want to go into a career, I know you wanted to be a sports broadcaster, I think.
Yep.
So whatever it is, find an expert. Find somebody who you can look up to. Find somebody who you can model yourself after. I think that's just a way to go about life. And when you find an expert, there's so much you can learn, and it will really help you see who you can try to mold yourself into, and then make your own version of that person, right? You don't want to be exactly like that person, but you might want to take some of the things that you've learned about them and some of the ways they've gotten to the point they're at for yourself. So.
Yeah, finding greatness and kind of shaping it into your own identity, I think is a great path and model to follow. So lastly here, I think this interview has been stellar. Being that you are an investor and a loan officer, I think your insight is invaluable, and there's a lot of investors out there that want to work with you, right? You've seen both sides, you know their pain points. You're probably most well equipped to close some of these loans for them. Do you want to quickly give ways that people can reach out to you? Are you active on any social media when it comes to investing? How can people find you after this episode?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place to start. Just my name, Michael Carrozzella. You can also reach me at my RCN email, mcarrozzella@rcncapital.com. Always happy to help with new or older investors with financing on their deals and talk through any pain points. So
nice. And for those wondering, Carrozzella, that'll be in the link below, right? So you don't have to guess how to spell that. We'll help you out on that one. Mike, thank you so much. It's been a great interview. I'm happy to sit down with you. And next time we're in the office, we'll have to talk about how this interview went and how much fun this was. Thank you so much for joining us. And to the audience out there, we appreciate you so much. Comment, like, subscribe. Let's grow this channel. Let's share more stories like Mike's here, and we'll try to help you guys get better every episode. For Uncontested Investing, this is Nate Zielinski. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook, and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.